This is Meet Sean, where we break down real life topics insurance, annuities, real estate, travel planning, and home ownership so you can make smarter moves. Subscribe so you don't miss the next episode.
I was actually looking at my calendar this morning, just trying to sort out the next few
Oh,
months.
yeah, the fun stuff. Vacations, birthdays.
Exactly. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe a weekend getaway. And it hit me, we spend so much of our mental energy just living in the future, don't we? Like, we obsess over the sunny days.
We do. It is human nature.
Eh,
I mean, we plan for the retirement party, the graduation, the dream home. We were wired to look forward to the good stuff.
right. But there is this whole other side to financial planning that, let's be honest, most of us actively treat like a radioactive object.
Yeah, we really do.
We don't want to touch it. We definitely don't want to talk about it over dinner.
The what if I'm not there conversation.
Exactly. The rainy day planning, or I guess more accurately, the hurricane planning. Today, we're wading into some heavy waters in this deep dive. We are talking about survivor benefits.
It is a heavy topic, but a crucial one.
It is. And look, I know what you're thinking listening to this. This sounds grim. But having gone through this guide from SeanWillenshire.net, I actually walked away feeling empowered. I think that's the right word.
I think it is. It's really about agency. Because the source material we're breaking down today, Survivor Benefits, a comprehensive guide makes this incredibly strong case that understanding this safety net is the only difference between a family capsizing during a tragedy or staying afloat.
Right.
It's not about dwelling on death. It's about securing life for the people you love.
That's a great way to put it. And the mission for this deep dive is to decode what is honestly a really complex world. We are talking Social Security, pensions, tax, traps of the works.
Yeah, there's a lot to unpack.
And the biggest thing we need to shatter right out of the gate is this assumption I think we all have that this stuff just happens automatically.
Oh, yeah, that is the single most dangerous assumption you can make.
Because people think it's like a movie, right?
Exactly. People have this movie script idea
Yeah.
that when a tragedy happens, some master computer in Washington lights up, realizes what happened, and checks just start magically appearing in the mailbox to save the day.
Spoiler alert, it does not work that way.
Yeah, not even close. As we'll see, it is a maze. You're dealing with eligibility rules, age cliffs, and a literal mountain of paperwork that you have to navigate.
Usually while you are in the absolute worst emotional state of your life.
Right, which is why you have to know this stuff beforehand.
So let's turn on the lights in that maze. Let's start with the big picture definitions here. When the guy talks about survivor benefits, it's not referring to just one check from one place, is it?
No, and that's where the confusion usually starts. Survivor benefits is an umbrella term.
Okay.
The source defines it broadly as any financial support designed to stabilize a family after a loss. It's about replacing the income and the support that the deceased provided. And really, if you look at the structure of the guide, it falls into three distinct buckets.
Let's unpack those buckets because they function very differently. The first one is the big one, Social Security.
Right. This is the federal program. It's what I call the rights-based bucket. You paid taxes, or your spouse did, and you earned a right to this coverage. It's the most common form of support, but the rules are surprisingly rigid.
Then you have the second bucket, which the guide flags as the wild card.
Pension survivor benefits. This is the contract-based bucket. These are tied specifically to an employer.
So not a federal rule.
Exactly. Unlike Social Security, which has federal statutes, this depends entirely on what piece of paper the employee signed 10 or 20 years ago.
Wow, okay. And the third bucket.
That's the private or other category. This is life insurance, which is a private contract or potentially veterans benefits. This is usually the cleanest bucket in terms of just getting a check, but it requires the most pre-planning.
Right, because you had to buy the policy.
Exactly.
And the core purpose here, and I think this is important to frame for anyone listening who might think this is just extra cash, is that this isn't a lottery win.
Far from it. The guide emphasizes this heavily. This is often the primary replacement for the deceased's income.
It's what pays the mortgage.
Right. It keeps the lights on, buys the groceries. It ensures that dependents can maintain some semblance of their standard of living. It is a lifeline, not a bonus.
Okay, let's dive deep into that first bucket, Social Security, because that's the one that affects the vast majority of people.
It definitely is.
I think the common wisdom is something like, okay, I'm married, so if my spouse dies, I get their Social Security. Simple as that.
And the source blows that simplicity right out of the water. It's not just about being married. It is about age and circumstance. The guide breaks down the eligibility for spouses, and there's some really strict numbers you need to memorize.
Let's look at those age requirements.
Hmm.
If you are a surviving spouse, you can't just claim benefits at any age, right?
Generally, no. The magic number is 60.
60.
Yeah. A surviving spouse must be at least 60 years old to claim survivor benefits.
So let's play that out. If you are 45 years old working a job, maybe you've got some bills piling up and your spouse passes away, you generally cannot just start collecting that monthly check immediately for yourself.
Correct. You are in a waiting period. You are essentially on your own until you hit that milestone. Now, there is a caveat regarding disability. If the surviving spouse is disabled, that age requirement drops to 50. But for most people, 60 is the gatekeeper.
However, and this was the part of the guide where I actually highlighted it twice, there is a massive exception to this rule. It feels like a critical, specific circumstance that people miss.
The caretaker exception.
Yes.
This is huge. You can be any age, literally any age, and collect survivor benefits if you are caring for the deceased's child who is under age 16 or disabled.
Okay, so let's make that concrete. If you're a young parent, say 32 years old, and you lose your partner, but you have a toddler at home.
You are back in the eligibility pool immediately because the system recognizes that your ability to work and earn income is fundamentally impacted by raising that child alone.
That makes sense.
So the age 60 rule goes completely out the window in that specific caretaking scenario.
But there's a trap there too, right? The guide implies a sort of cliff. What happens when that child turns 16?
That is the hidden danger. It's often called the blackout period, though the guide just alludes to the age gaps. If you are collecting, because you have a 15-year-old, the day that child turns 16, your checks as the parent stop.
Wait, even if the kid is still in high school?
The kid might still get their own benefit, which we'll get to in a second, but the parent's benefit stops. And here's the kicker.
What's that?
If you aren't 60 yet, you get nothing until you hit age 60.
Wow. So let's trace that timeline. If your youngest child turns 16 when you are, say, 48 years old.
You are staring down a 12-year gap.
12 years.
12 years with no survivor benefits for yourself until you age back into the system at 60. That is a massive hole in the safety net that people just do not plan for.
That is sobering. It really changes how you look at emergency savings.
Yeah.
Speaking of the kids, they have their own eligibility rules distinct from the spouse, don't they?
They do. The guide specifies that children of the deceased can receive benefits, but generally they must be unmarried and under the age of 18.
Is there any wiggle room on the 18 number? Because plenty of kids are still in high school at 18. I mean, I was still in high school at 18.
There is a little wiggle room. If they are 19, but still a full-time student in secondary school, so high school, not college, they are still eligible.
Okay, that's good to know.
And similar to the spouse rule, if the child developed a disability before age 22, they can continue to receive benefits into adulthood.
Okay, so we've got the spouse, we've got the kids, but here's the one that really caught me off guard in the source material. We usually think of support flowing down, parents supporting kids. But the guide mentions a forgotten dependent.
Yes, the parents of the deceased.
The parents. That wild.
It is something very few people realize exists in the Social Security Code. If a worker passes away their own parents, so the grandparents of the children can be eligible for survivor benefits on that worker's record.
That feels surprising. What's the criteria there? I assume it's strict.
It is very strict. The parents must be age 62 or older. But the key kicker is dependency. They must have been financially dependent on the deceased for at least half of their support.
Ah, I see. So if you were the dutiful son or daughter paying for your elderly mother's housing and food and you pass away.
The system acknowledges that she has lost her financial lifeline just like a spouse or child would have. It's a recognition of the earnings history and who that income was actually supporting in the real world.
That is fascinating. It really broadens the definition of family in the eyes of the system. Okay, so we know who qualifies. Now, the big question every listener is probably asking, how much money are we actually talking about?
This is where we have to get into the math. And the guide explains that the benefit amount is not a flat rate. Everyone doesn't get the same check.
Right.
It depends entirely on the deceased's earnings history.
It's a reflection of what they paid in taxes over their career.
Exactly. The more they earned and the more they paid into Social Security taxes over their lifetime, the higher the benefit base. But, and this is the crucial strategy point, the amount the survivor actually receives depends on when they ask for it.
The age trade-off. Walk us through this because this feels like a high-stakes gamble.
It is. It's a major trade-off between immediate cash flow and long-term security. If a widow or widower waits until their own full retirement age, which varies by birth year but is usually around 66 or 67, they receive 100% of the deceased spouse's benefit amount. They get the full pie.
Okay, 100%. That's the goal. But life is expensive. What if they need the money earlier? You mentioned they can claim at 60.
They can. But there's a penalty for early access. The source specifies that if you claim at age 60, you might only receive 71.5% of the benefit.
Ouch. That is a nearly 30% haircut. Permanently.
Permanently. That check doesn't jump back up to 100% when you turn 67. You locked in the lower rate for the rest of your life. The range is 71.5% to 99%, depending on exactly when between age 60 and full retirement age you claim.
That is a brutal calculation to make when you're grieving. You're sitting there thinking, I need money now, but by taking it, you're shrinking your safety net for the next 20 or 30 years.
It is. And the source mentions one other limit that complicates the family maximum.
The ceiling.
Right. There is a cap on the total amount of benefits that can be paid to a family on one worker's record. It's usually between 150% and 180% of the deceased's basic benefit.
Okay.
So if you have a surviving spouse and, say, 3 or 4 children, all claiming they might hit that ceiling.
And what happens then? The government just pays more?
No. The individual benefits get prorated down. They get squeezed to fit under the cap. Basically, the pie doesn't get bigger, the slices just get thinner.
So relying on napkin math is a bad idea.
Terrible idea. The source highly recommends using a specialized survivor benefits calculator or speaking directly to the administration to run the scenarios. Do not guess.
Good advice. Okay, let's pivot to the second bucket, pensions. If Social Security is a complex federal statute, pensions seem like the Wild West.
Wild cards is the word I would use. Unlike Social Security pensions are private contracts. They vary wildly from employer to employer.
Right.
The source notes that the benefit might be a lump sum payment. It might be a monthly annuity, or it might be a continuation of the payments the retiree was already getting.
And this depends on choices made while the person was alive, right? I feel like I've heard horror stories about this.
You probably have. This is the joint and survivor decision. When a worker retires, they often stand at a crossroads. They have to check a box. Option A is, I take a higher monthly payment now, but it stops the day I die. Option B is, I take a slightly lower payment now, but my spouse keeps getting paid after I'm gone.
And if they chose option A to get that extra couple $100 a month?
The pension evaporates upon death. Poof, gone. And the spouse is left with zero from that bucket.
That is a sobering thought. And this brings us back to that not automatic myth we teased in the intro. With Social Security, the government usually gets notified of a death fairly quickly via funeral directors. But with pensions,
You have to do the legwork. The checks do not just show up. The source explicitly states that you must initiate the process.
what's step one?
Notification. You have to contact the plan administrator. But then comes step 2, gathering what I like to call the paperwork mountain.
What kind of documents are we dragging up this mountain?
The source lists several. Obviously, proof of death, the death certificate. You'll need multiple certified copies of that, by the way. Proof of identity, but then proof of relationship. This can get tricky.
You mean like marriage certificates?
Marriage certificates, birth certificates for the kids. And the source notes something that made me pause. In some cases, you might need divorce decrees.
Divorce decrees. Wait, why would a widow need a divorce decree?
Well, if either the deceased or the survivor have been married previously, the pension administrator might need to see the divorce decrees from those previous marriages to prove that they legally ended ensuring the current marriage and the claim is valid.
Can you imagine? You are in the depths of grief trying to plan a funeral house full of relatives, and suddenly you have to go rummaging through boxes in the attic looking for a divorce decree from 1995.
It sounds like a nightmare. But that is the reality the source describes. It really underscores why preparation is so important. If you don't know where those documents are right now today, you are leaving a scavenger hunt for your grieving family.
That is a powerful visual, a scavenger hunt nobody wants to play.
Precisely. And while you are climbing that mountain of paperwork, you also have to navigate the financial implications of the money once it actually arrives, because this brings us to the next big hurdle, the tax trap.
Right. I think for a lot of listeners, this is where the rubber meets the road. We often assume that because it's a benefit resulting from a death, the IRS would have the decency to leave it alone.
A dangerous assumption.
Yep.
The source breaks this down into taxable versus non-taxable categories, and it is vital to know the difference so you don't get hit with a surprise bill the next April.
Okay, give us the good news first. What is usually tax-free?
Life insurance payouts. That third bucket we mentioned. Generally speaking, if you receive a life insurance check that is tax-free money, that is the cleanest asset.
And the not-so-good news.
Tensions. The source warns that pension benefits are often taxable as ordinary income. So if you receive a substantial pension survivor benefit, the IRS treats that just like a paycheck. You need to be withholding taxes or setting money aside.
And what about our friend Social Security?
The classic answer, it depends. Social Security survivor benefits might be taxable depending on the survivor's total income. If you have other sources of substantial income, like that taxable pension or a job, a portion of those Social Security benefits becomes taxable.
So receiving this money isn't just about cashing checks. It requires some serious strategic planning. The source talks about budgeting immediately after a loss.
It does. It suggests a back-to-basics approach. Assess the new financial reality. Prioritize essentials, mortgage, utilities, groceries. The income level has likely dropped even with the benefits, so the budget has to adapt instantly.
And there's a specific warning about lump sums regarding pensions, right?
This is a critical decision point.
Yeah.
Sometimes a pension plan will say, we can give you $300 a month for life, or we can write you a check for $50,000 right now and call it even.
The lump sum looks tempting. It's a big pile of cash when you feel insecure.
It is extremely tempting. But the tax implications can be huge. Taking a lump sum might push you into a much higher tax bracket for that year, meaning a huge chunk of that money goes straight to the government.
Wow.
The source strongly advises consulting a tax professional before checking that box.
It's amazing how many high-stakes decisions you have to make when you are least emotionally equipped to make them.
That is the paradox of survivor benefits. They are designed to help you, but accessing them requires a level of executive function, organization, strategy, patience that grief often just shuts down.
Let's do a quick myth-busting round before we wrap up. The guide lists a few common misconceptions that trip people up. I'll throw them at you. You debunk them. Ready?
Let's do it.
Myth number 1. If I remarry, I definitely lose my survivor benefits.
Fiction, or at least mostly fiction. The source says remarriage might affect benefits, particularly if it happens before age 60 for Social Security. But if you remarry after 60, generally you keep the benefits. Do not assume you are disqualified. Check the specific rules.
Myth number 2. Survivor benefits are just a one-time sorry for your lost payment.
Fiction. While life insurance is often a lump sum Social Security and many pensions are designed as monthly income replacements, they're there for the long haul to mimic a paycheck.
And finally, the big one we keep hitting, it's all automatic.
Absolute fiction. You have to apply, you have to prove eligibility, you have to be your own advocate.
So as we look at all of this, the age rules, the tax implications, the paperwork mountain, what does this all mean for us practically?
If we connect this to the bigger picture, it means that survivor benefits are a hybrid. They are part rights like Social Security and part contracts like pensions and insurance. Access to them requires knowledge.
You really have to know your stuff.
You do. You need to know that age 60 is the magic number for spouses. You need to know that age 16 is the blackout start for parents. You need to know exactly where the marriage certificate is.
It's about moving from passive hope to active preparation.
Exactly. The system works, but you have to work the system.
You know, thinking about that 71.5% number keeps sticking with me. We call this a safety net. But if you are forced to claim early at age 60 because you've lost your partner's income, you are permanently locking in a significantly reduced benefit.
It raises a very provocative question, doesn't it? The system is designed to replace some income, but rarely all of it. So is this safety net actually enough to keep a family afloat? Or is it really just a life preserver that keeps you from drowning but leaves you bobbing in rough waters?
That is a tough question, and I think it highlights why private insurance and personal savings are such a critical layer on top of these government benefits. The government plan is the floor, not the ceiling.
It certainly suggests that relying solely on the automatic safety net might not be enough to maintain the life you build.
Well, on that cheery but necessary note, we want to challenge you. Don't wait for a crisis to figure this out. Go look at your policies today. Find that marriage certificate. Check your Social Security statement to see what the survivor benefit estimates actually are. Do it today, not tomorrow.
Your future self or your family will thank you.
Thanks for diving deep with us today. We'll see you on the next one.
That's it for today's Meet Sean. If this helped, follow the show and share this episode with one person who needs it. See you next time.